Welcome, everyone, to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada, the podcast dedicated to exploring the levels of healing and transformation within the recovery community and among individuals seeking personal growth and fulfillment. I'm Peg McDermott, your co-host, and my other host is
Heather Hageman.
And today we're going to be talking about understanding grief and the types of loss that we've all had to endure and experience through our journey in recovery, and the stages of grief and healthy coping mechanisms and finding support through loss. And whenever I hear the word grief, Heather, I don't have the same reaction that I used to. I would sort of push that subject away. I didn't want to deal with it, didn't want to talk about it, didn't even want to admit that I was feeling it. And today, that's different. I don't stay in grief space for a long time, but when I'm there, I recognize what it is today. I can feel it in my body, and it's really more around my throat chakra where I feel the grief the most. So I don't know what your journeys looked like, because I know you've experienced a lot of loss in life, and we've also experienced layers of loss in recovery.
I have to say that I'm very grateful because I think one of the most biggest loss was when both my parents died over a period of 10 years. And I lost my father at age 55, and he had a cancer that really basically was going to have him dead in 2 years, but he lived 17 more years. And I just remember when I felt like I was going to lose my father, when he had written me this letter and said he was going to die pretty quickly. It was actually one of the big moments in my life where I actually fell on the floor and really thought, I don't want to live without him, and I want to die with him. And I knew that was not the healthiest way of looking at this. And it was probably one of the biggest things that got me into recovery.
Mm.
And but I'm really grateful, and I just want to start off saying that I'm grateful that he died later so that I could do a lot of great work along the way. I had probably had 15 years of sobriety when he died. So I was thankful for a lot of the tools, and because he was one of the biggest people in my life that really affected me the most. But I was able to actually embrace it in recovery in a way that I don't think I could have embraced if it happened when, let's say, I was 8 years old and he was shot down in Vietnam and he was missing in action. And I think that was, so a lot of us have had loss of people, loss of pets, loss of things. But I think one of the things that we don't really speak about a lot is that when we start this recovery journey, we all come in with this feeling of lots of losses. It's kind of what got us into recovery, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. Relationships were devastated, careers, a sense of identity, loss of a loved one. I mean, all of that we bring in to this recovery process right at the start. I almost feel like when we start to, quote, thaw out, we numbed out so much of that in a way, I think for me, I got a double whammy of those emotions that I did not want to feel now that I'm sober, and I'm actually having to go back because I needed professional care and I needed to go back over a lot of the things in my life. And so talking about it did feel like I was re-injuring myself, but what I was really doing is I was feeling the grief of things that I couldn't feel. So
Yeah.
it's very hard. I'd say the first 3 years are not easy in recovery, but it's worth it. I'm right cheering you on. But those beginning years, I always tell people it's not going to be easy because you're going to feel better, but you're going to feel your feelings better. And I think the number one feeling that I don't think we really know how to articulate, because we really don't know what it is, but I think it is grief.
Right. And that can sometimes masquerade as anger.
Yes. Yes.
And sadness.
Yes.
And sometimes depression. But for me, it was mostly, especially when I was grieving the loss, I lost my mom suddenly, and I had a year of in recovery. And thankfully I did. And it really did help me to get through that. And it helped me to get through the subsequent grief because I felt I had a community I could turn to, and I had a more authentic relationship with a higher power. And it wasn't the manufactured one that I grew up with, but more of an authentic relationship with this entity that loves me and wants me to be happy. And that wasn't possible without working through these feelings of loss. When I first got sober, I grieved drinking. I grieved the loss of that life. And that was a significant loss for me. And yet at the same time, I was like, yes, I do. That was a big part of my life for many years, to cope, just to have fun. But then it turned into an addiction. I believe I was an alcoholic from the very beginning when I first took my first drink, and it progressed. And it was what I turned to when I didn't want to feel. So I did grieve that for a while as a coping tool. And friends, there were a lot of friends I had to let go of. And social circles where alcohol was really at the center of everything we did. And that was sad for me to let go of some people. And I tried to hang on to them for a while. Like I'd go to parties that we used to go to. And I don't recommend that, by the way, because it's a slippery slope. And when I was there and in the midst of these friends whom I loved at the time, and they were good people, but I couldn't be there anymore. I realized I'm not the same person anymore. And I saw the same dramas play out, and I saw how people were changing. And I'm like, God, did I used to do that? And I realized I couldn't do that if I wanted to stay sober. I couldn't be around the people, and I couldn't be around their drinking habits. So those were big losses in the beginning. And really, sometimes I'll look back and I'll think, I'll grieve what I thought was a lot of lost time that I wasted being drunk or hungover or in the midst of a lot of isms. And I didn't allow me to be present and focused. That can still be very much a part of my life as far as future casting, but I really do try and pull it back into today. But, back then, the grief around the loss of family members was also acute. And I didn't turn to alcohol to cope with those losses. And I think HP every day that I didn't, because it was the kind of pain they don't make words for. And you know that after losing your parents, it's just a very painful process.
Yes. And when I was listening to you, I was thinking about, and I'm just going to go back for a moment, but I was thinking about the loss of these friends that I had known for years and years. And I'm thinking about a housewarming party I had and invited a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a while. And they're showing up with expensive bottles of wine and actually homemade beer and all these things they knew that I would love. And I was saying, thinking, they're like, oh, can I pour you a glass? And I was like, get something later. And then it just happened the whole time that they were there. And I said, listen, guys, I made an announcement. I said, I don't drink anymore. And I'm really happy not drinking. That's all I said. I don't drink anymore. And I'm really happy. And then the remarks, oh, she doesn't drink anymore. Just how's that working for you? And, oh, you're not going to be any fun anymore. I mean, just some of these comments from people. And I know, Peg, though, that anybody that would make comments like that, a little drinking problem themselves. Okay, this is what I'm just saying.
They felt threatened.
They've got something going on. They got something going on. It's not about me. But at the time, I was, thank goodness, I had people I could run that by, and they would say it's not about you. It's about them. This is all about You begin to really assess, and I think this is when you want to get solution oriented around this, you really start to assess whether these friendships were inspiring and healing or were they negative and heavy and not helpful. And that is a hard thing. And yes, I still grieve a handful of people that I no longer talk to. And what unfortunately starts to happen when you start to live this path, this journey of being radically honest, I'll say, you start to have that desire for your friends to be the same. I want people, and that's why you're in my life, Peg, who walk the walk and are truthful, that I can rely on. I can't have anybody close to me that's in denial and not honest. And but anyway, that whole piece comes back to this grief piece. And what's interesting, I just want to just share this with you, because before you come into recovery and you have a lot of loss, and now you're coming into recovery and you're having to deal with all this loss, sometimes it becomes a very complicated, what they call grief disorder. And so it's important that you really working with professionals around this, because it can resemble, a lot of times people get very depressed in early recovery. I've seen this. I experienced it myself, and depressed to the point where you're not happy about being on earth anymore. It's so important that that is addressed and that you get help for that and you share that, and not be ashamed of the fact that you're grieving and you're still in pain. And one of the things I just want to say, that I think where I was hit, not just with the friends, but I was hit with this realization that I felt like I had been living underwater and not living in reality of life. I was just numb. And yet I thought I was having fun, and I really wasn't having fun. I was not having fun. I mean, maybe in those temporary moments where my brain was feeling good with the buzz on, but afterwards I was always continually plummeting into this horrible shame, guilt, remorse, and depression. And I felt like I was always trying to get ahead of it, and I was always falling behind in it. And so I think I was really sad that I lived so much of my life like that. And that was really painful to all of a sudden wake up to that fact. But coming back to the positiveness of it, now I have the chance to begin again and to live a miraculous, amazing life that I would never have dreamed possible. That sobriety could be so much fun, and I feel so safe. I feel so safe that I can wake up and know what I said yesterday and who I'm with and what I've done. I mean, it's just such a great way of being, and I wouldn't trade it. But there's grief before recovery and there's grief in recovery, and that's kind of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really well put. Thank you. The stages of grief and recovery, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I was looking this up, and it says denial, my use wasn't that bad, or minimizing the addiction impact. Anger is resentment towards normal users and time lost to addiction. Bargaining is negotiating with yourself about the fact that maybe I can drink safely in the future, which is, for me, not possible. Depression, as you'd noted, acceptance, finding new meaning in what you just shared. It's just finding new meaning in this life of recovery and connection. And then that acceptance is, yeah, I am who I am, and it's okay to grieve, and I need to process it for as long as I need to process it. And it's a very personal and subjective process for people. And it's not something you can just get over. It is something that, like alcoholism, grief is very patient. It will wait, and it won't go away until we look at it and feel it and walk through it. It's part of being human, this grieving process, because loss is part of life. And I know when I lost my My mom and my brother, 2 different times, but to this disease, I was so thankful to have healthy tools that I could turn to, like friendship, like you, and meetings for me, and having a mentor or sponsor, and having a group therapy. I went to group therapy after my mom passed away, and it was around those that had lost parents. And I just stumbled upon it. And it was so helpful for me to be in that group and be able to share. But I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not been able to share in our meetings and feel safe to do that. Really learning to practice feelings thoroughly and making sure that I don't sink into not wanting to do anything. I think movement, being with friends, safe friends, and above all else, for me, it's been being of service. That probably helped me more than anything, is because it helped me get out of myself. Because understandably, grief is a very self-absorbed experience. And for me, working with others, working with sponsees, working with people that really needed support really helped me a lot. And that's part of the healing process too. And my coping mechanisms used to be, I'm going to drink until I fall down and black out, or I'm going to fall into my isms, which could take on many colors and many forms. And today, it's not that way. My healthy coping mechanisms are talking about it, is sharing. Hey, I think I'm feeling some grief. I'm feeling sad. And being in a room of other safe people that understand that and don't try and stop it because it's uncomfortable for them. You know, I need to be around people that can sit with it with me. So I think those healthier coping mechanisms have been very helpful for me. Meditation, prayer, knowing that my loved ones are with a loving being that loves me as well. And that gave me a lot of peace, really did. So I think the spectrum of unhealthy coping to healthy coping and moving through that spectrum in recovery has been really eye-opening for me through my grieving processes. And there'll be other times, there'll be other losses that I'll experience in my life. And I'll know when or if that happens, when it happens, because it's part of living, is that I don't have to use over it.
Yeah, and I think just with all of our emotions, I mean, I know that I absolutely used outside sources to shift and change and not feel my emotions. Outside unhealthy sources, alcohol, drugs, food, everything. And I think when a lot of the shift for me is this, I had sort of like an emotional liberation where I began to realize that all of these emotions are okay, and that I'm not going to die from my emotions, and that I can feel these emotions, and I can use a lot of the tools that I have shared because I'm a yogi, and I learn where in my body am I feeling this, and how can I move through this or embrace it? But I do have to say, I think probably what's very vital is that we communicate to another person about it. I think as people in recovery, I think our isolation and loneliness was so crippling and so harmful. And I believe that the path to healing is connection, and to really letting people get to know you, and to really be able to say without fear, here it is 10 years ago, and and Peg, I'm still really sad that my dad is gone. I'm sad that my mom is gone. I'm sad. I'm having a sad moment. And I can call anyone of my friends, my support group up and say, I'm feeling sad. And I don't have to explain it. And all you do is nod and say, I got you. I love you. I hear you. That's all we really need.
True.
And then it comes back to me. And I think this is the other piece that I think was really sad. And sometimes sometimes I can kind of tear up around it, is this lost connection with myself. I know that I never really got to know me. And I try to live my life without regrets. That's one of the things I try to do, but I still have that niggling regret of what I could have been had I done things differently. I mean, instead of drinking and smoking weed every day throughout college. I mean, and I still made great grades and graduated. And how did I, and my master's degree, how did I do all that? Still doing well. But wow, what could it have been like if I had been completely sober, right? So I have this like sadness about that young girl and what's going on with her, that she was so lost and so struggled so hard to be in her skin. She couldn't be comfortable, quiet. She couldn't be alone in her house. She had to have music on. She had to have loud music on in the car. Like, I look at all the ways that I used to be and it really comes back to that connection with me, that I couldn't just put my hand on my heart without cringing. And then that connection with you, like a safe you. But it had to be, I think what had to happen first was that safe connection with you to see me and to say to me, you're lovable. You are lovable, and you have never been anything less. And you are perfect just the way you are.
Yes.
Because I took the hand of my abuser in my voice to myself. I became that abuser to me. And that's the sad part, when we wake up to that and realize, oh my gosh, it was me. I was my own enemy. And so letting go of that hurt and that harm that I did on my own self, and that I begin to make amends to me by loving me and liberating me through self-care and through daily, gentle, healthy practices, being able to like know what I want to eat today that's healthy, and get some sun and rub oils on my skin and talk to a couple people and be of service. Like, I have a whole daily practice that I do now, that I have to do now, to keep me in this present moment awareness where there isn't that grief anymore. I mean, I can touch it. I can touch anger. I can touch disgust. I can touch all these things, but I don't have to marinate in them and be trapped in them and lose time in them anymore as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get me wrong. Everything is going to have its length of time. If I need to be sad, and I need to be sad for a week, a month, I can be sad. I'm not going to take that away from me, but I am going to not do this alone anymore. I'm going to let people know. And if you take anything from this podcast, please have somebody in your life. Reach out to somebody. Have somebody that you feel safe with, that you can talk to and share about what's going on with you.
Yes. It's very, it's a healthy, self-loving thing to do. And, we have those people in our lives today, and they aren't going to try and fix it. They'll listen and they'll sit with you in a painful time, in a painful moment, and they won't try and fix it. I've had many folks that aren't one of us. They're normies. And I will share sometimes, oh, I'm feeling sad today. They'll say, like, how are you doing? And I'm feeling a little sad. Well, why are you feeling sad? I don't know. I think I miss my brother. I thought a couple things about Tim, and oh my goodness, he died in 2013. Are you really thinking about that? And I realized that makes folks uncomfortable. I need to go to my people and share it with people that get it and say, yeah, I can understand why you'd feel sad about that. So what are you doing today to take care of yourself and love yourselves and know that you're loved and you're not alone? It's like, that's what those are the things, like that young girl that you talked about. Can you reach back to her and pull her into your heart if you haven't already? Do you know what I mean? It's like, love her. Because every version of who I was getting here, I love that, every single version of me, because I couldn't have gotten here without them. And I love them. And I don't want to not love any part of myself, even the part of me that is sad, or just the part that I used to want to discard, like it wasn't happening. And because that's how I grew up. If I had a feeling, especially a sad one, it was not okay. It was not okay to feel. It was not okay to have it. And it was not okay to communicate. And that's what I learned. Don't connect to feelings. Don't even talk about them. And I remember when my grandmother died, and it was 1980, and I was still in school. And I didn't know what to do with that pain. And I was in my drinking years, right? I was in my early 20s, but I did not know what to do. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know who to talk to about it. I didn't really have anybody to talk about it. But even if I had, Heather, I wouldn't have known what to say because I wouldn't have been able to connect with the feelings or verbalize them, name them. It would just feel very disconnected. And I'm so thankful today that isn't my experience. But I can understand why that 20-year-old version of me felt that way because of how I grew up. And so I love her and I bring her into my life and my meditation and I say, I get it. Because it's like, I don't want to feel sad and I don't want to admit that I'm sad. And I'm like, it's okay to admit you're sad. It really is. That's part of being alive. And I love you no matter what. I mean, we all need that validation. And we all need everything's going to be okay. And it's okay to be sad. And everything's going to be okay. Reassurance. And that's what we give to one another. But I wasn't capable of doing any of those things while I was using. And even some few years into my sobriety, because I was still trying to figure out who I was. It's been a healthy, loving, interesting journey. It's been the biggest gift ever because we have a roadmap today. We have a guide to living. And part of living isn't easy. There are lots of parts of living that just aren't easy.
I know. I wish we had given him some sort of instruction book that we could have had starting in kindergarten.
Right.
This idea of, you said something about not being able to have feelings. And I just always remember my dad, my great general, the Marine Corps dad, looking at me as a little girl when I was crying because we were moving again. I had to leave behind a pet or a friend. And he would say, Heather, big girls don't cry. And I think I equated crying with not being a big girl. And I would say, I will also share this, something that I've seen in my own self and others, is that, I have heard myself for many years before I got into recovery. I just don't cry. I mean, I never cry. I never cry about anything. Yeah, because of course I'm numb all the time, but I don't cry. And then when we're going through the process of recovery, oh my gosh, there's so many tears and tears come out sideways and you think you're like losing your mind because you're crying about so many different things. And to know that's normal. And now when I'm working, I think it's beautiful. I'm working with people that are in early recovery and they're crying a lot and they're crying every meeting and I see their tears. My heart just opens and smiles and knows they're healing. And with each teardrop, they're becoming more and more awake and more alive, and they're going to experience the greatest joy of their life being on this sober journey. And I'm so happy for their tears. And they think I say to them, I'm so happy you're crying. They're like, what? You got to know, this means you're feeling and you're going to cry. And how am I going to cry? I feel like I'm crying every day. It's going to take what it takes.
Oh,
It's going to take what it takes.
it takes what it takes.
Yeah.
And we're here for each other and we help each other through this. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast, because we wanted to, you actually came up with the name Recovery, the Whole Enchilada, because it's just all of these ingredients of living that, we're experiencing and able to experience. And part of it is the grieving process and having these tools around us and this guide for living that helps us get through difficult times and helps us help others get through difficult times. I love you, my friend. You've helped me through a lot of loss and I really appreciate you.
I love you.
thank you for joining us today on this recovery, the Whole Enchilada episode of dealing with grief and recovery. Next time, we're going to be talking about relationships and knowing how to cultivate a healthy relationship and also be someone who is healthy in relationship. And that's what we'll be covering next time. Do make sure to follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Your reviews, your feedback, your follow means a lot to us. We love you. We don't know you, but we do know you in a way, and we love you. And remember, you're not alone on this journey of healing and transformation. And until next time, stay strong and keep growing. Yay.
See you next time.
Mm.
Bye, Peg.